And you know, when I was thinking about this talk, I was wondering, well, how do you start? And what better start than a healing? And the very first one I can think of is my very first healing, and that I don't remember, but I read about in a little booklet called Livret de santé in French, a medical booklet that every French citizen is given at birth that documents all the compulsory vaccination and all those things. And in there it said that a surgical operation was programmed when I was just born, but then the pages are blank. There was no surgery. So what happened is this, is my excited parents, I was their first child, got to the hospital, and the doctors were very kind and caring for my mom, but they found something really wrong with me just upon delivery, without giving a very complicated name. It was just a stomach perforation and blood loss and internal blood loss and so on. So they rushed me out of that hospital to another hospital that was more equipped to deal with this type of situation. And then my mom realized that she had a choice. In a way, not a medical choice. They took the baby, took me away and transferred me there, but she had a choice to make in thought. And I believe that we all have a choice. Whatever the fear of the day, whatever makes us anxious, we always have a choice. We have the easy choice, which is to go with the darkness, to go with the anxiety and trying to solve it as best as we can. Or, just like my mom, we can try to do whatever it takes to turn to our sense of God. And I'm saying our sense of God because if I was to give a little piece of paper and say, what does God mean to you? There would be probably many, many different answers. That night, and my dad was gone to the second hospital, but my mom stayed in the first one. My dad was in the ambulance over there. That night, my mom had a sense of God as infinite love. Not just a Valentine love, but just this deep power, the infinite good, infinite love. And she shared with me later that she was more busy thinking about that sense of infinite love, that ever-presence, than worrying about all the diagnosis, and there was much to worry about because they were not too sure about the outcome of the surgery. And in a very dramatic way, she fell asleep. She had such a sense of calm, such a sense of peace that she fell asleep. At the other hospital on the other side there, my dad arrived. There was no treatment they could do, just the surgery, so no medical treatment was given. So they prepared everything, and so my dad waited and waited, and in the end, the chief doctor came and said, we're canceling the surgery. We don't believe our colleagues were wrong because we saw all the testing in the other hospital, but we cannot find any trace of the physical perforation. There is just nothing wrong, so we'll keep your little one, and big one now, under observation just because we just don't understand. As you can imagine, my parents were super grateful, and out of kindness to the doctors, they stayed with me a bit longer at the hospital until they say, well, can we go home now? And doctors say, well, yeah, the child is perfect and you can go home. And to be reassured, the doctors wanted more medical checkup in the following month, which my parents did, and everything proved to be absolutely intact. So you could say that that was my first healing, but if you look around Christian Science a bit, you'll find that it's one of many, 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 many healings. So I did mention the term God, and And I think we need to be clear, at least in this room, what do we mean by God? And my law training has taught me to define something by its opposite to start with. So I won't be boring, but I'll say that what God is not. And God is not, at least within the context of our talk tonight, God is not something that tests mankind by sending a pandemic or challenges or any problems in our life. To me, it makes no sense that infinite love would produce anything else than love and harmony, whatever is constructive and good. Obviously, God is not something corporeal, a corporeality, a being somewhere. It is really infinite good. And it is customary to say that it is everywhere. And you can say, well, how can it be everywhere? And one image which is helpful is the principle of mathematics is everywhere. There is no place where you cannot make an addition or make a multiplication. It is governing numbers everywhere. So it helps with our sense of God as principle. And it is not the God of a little club or a little church. It is universal, in a way, as universal as love. Is there a Jewish love or Muslim love or atheist love? Love is love. And we know what a power it is. You know, when you look at Jesus' teachings, there is more explanation about God. And gone is the idea of a God out there in the distance. And Jesus explains that God is very near, and we'll see even nearer than this. And so introduce the term Father. And that's an idea of very, very close. But I would say that the main import of Jesus' teachings was to explain to the world that we are actually all at one with God, at one with this infinite. So it's not as if we're here on some island and there's a God somewhere out there, and when we're in trouble we may plead or ask for something and that God will give it to us. No, we're actually at one with God. And if you look very carefully at Jesus' teachings, that's the point he was making, that God and man is one. You cannot have a father without a child, maybe an uncle or a neighbor, but a father has to have a child. And Jesus kept saying, your Father which is in heaven. That's the first few phrases of the Bible. And there are many more synonyms in the Bible that gets us to have a clear idea of what God is. You have the Almighty. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, Psalm 23, the shepherd. And I think it is really fun when we are in a situation that is not so fun, just to enlarge our concept of God so that our thought can really focus on the infinite and not go down the slide of worry and darkness, really. One of the things that I found very surprising when you read Jesus' teachings is that I mentioned Christian Science healings, but they're just back to first century healings. And the first healings they've been were in the Bible. It's just a continuing of those healings. What's very surprising is that, yes, Jesus teaches others how to heal, and he did say that whoever understands what I teach, who I am, will heal as I do. That's straight from the Bible, and that's what happened. His disciples, his students were healing others, and others after that. But again, there's something very surprising that Jesus says. When at one point his students go and heal others, and they come back all excited, saying, well, we're healing others, and I don't know if they said we'll change the world, but you can see there's a sense of excitement, according to the Bible narrative. But Jesus doesn't get excited at all. He does not say, well done for doing all those healings. I'm so proud of you, dear students. No, he actually says the opposite. He says, do not rejoice in the healings. I'm paraphrasing. So how come? Why would Jesus say this? Wasn't this the point, that to teach how to heal? Well, not me, Jesus speaking, but Christian Science, going back to Jesus' teachings, is not a cool or amazing new way of healings. Yes, it does that, but it's way deeper than this. And you know what Jesus actually says to his excited students? He says, "You should rejoice because," and I quote, "your names are written in heaven." Your names are written in heaven. In other words, you should rejoice because you can let go of a sense of life as limited, as making no sense. Why is this child sick and was an innocent child and passes away? Why is there a disaster over there? You can let go of a life that makes no sense, a material sense of life, to embrace a spiritual perspective on life, to embrace your oneness with the divine, to embrace, yes, your status as children of God. And that's the exciting part. And as we'll see, the healings, the physical healings or healing or resolutions of difficult situations, is just a side effect of that understanding of our oneness with God. It's a side effect. It's almost an accident. Not really, it is scientific, but it is a side effect of this clear realization. So, how does it work? Well, when I started as a Christian Science practitioner, and that's someone who practices those ideas full-time, but it's not a priest, it's like a lay person that just commits his or her life to helping others through prayer. And sometimes some people do it part-time or sometime, and in this case it was full-time. A woman came to see me, and she explained that she had been diagnosed with cancer some month ago during a routine check, and there was a suspicion by the doctor, and they did more testing, and then the final diagnosis came. So the kind doctor offered different options, and that she felt were too chemical for her. She knew nothing of Christian Science back then, but she had an intuition that she could be healed in a more natural way. That's what she felt, and she had done some meditation, so she said to explore how she could be healed differently. So she politely declined all medical care and went on her way. She did admit when she was talking to me that she was still very afraid. She was very afraid because she had two young children, and she did not want them to become orphans. And she said that all the meditation she had made and the various books and different healings she had read were somewhat helpful, but she felt she was not there yet. And then she made two important disclosures. She said, number one, I don't like religion, and I don't believe in God. And I think she was suspicious that I would try to drag her into some religion or try to make her believe in God. And so I said something which I think most of us would agree with. I said, well, I don't believe in God either. Yes, you're raising your eyebrow. You're right. I was expecting it. Do we believe that 1 + 1 = 2? And we believe this firmly. No, we don't. We know 1 + 1 = 2. So, of course, I was being facetious, playing her game, but it's not about believing in God and stopping there. It takes a bit more work and more excitement. It's about understanding God. That's why we're looking at all those synonyms earlier, to have something that makes sense, not just a belief of a God somewhere that could be anything. So she liked that. And if you look at the book on Christian Science, Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, on the very, very first page, in the preface, it says, and I quote, "To those leaning on the sustaining infinite, today is big with blessings." And then later it says, "The time for thinkers has come." So the number one quality to study Christian Science is to be a thinker. Not to be a believer or a follower. We can leave that to other things. No, to be a thinker. because it's what we understand. So she was happy about that. And as far as religion is concerned, very easy when you flip through the book to realize that there is no profession of faith, there is no dogmas. It all goes with thinking. That's why I use math as an example. There is no dogmas there. You just have to prove and understand and prove what you can think. And I hope you can begin to see why that, in a way, weird term, Christian Science. I don't think it's weird, but the first time you encounter it, you may wonder, well, why Christian Science? Because it is all about the practice of those spiritual laws, spiritual principles that Jesus laid out there, that he explained. And that's their practice, their understanding. It's not just following a ritual. It's really understanding. It's way more than philosophy. It's seeing it really as a science in the purest term, which is a principle that can be demonstrated, a truth that can be practiced by anyone. So now she was smiling, and now she was happy, and I say I would pray for her. So I'll explain in a moment how I prayed about the situation, but let's finish her story. And it was really interesting to see that in a way, just like my mom in the earlier experience, that her thought changed over the next few months. It's almost as if her state of thought was just a room filled with darkness, and gradually there was more light, as if we're opening windows, like spiritual ideas giving us and giving her more comfort, more hope. And so she talked less and less about the diagnosis and the symptoms. She was more curious about, well, what does it mean to be the daughter of God? And does God look like me, or do I look like God? And so what does God look like? Those type of questions, and they're really very valid. And many spiritual epiphany, where she really had her thought transformed in many, many ways. And she was in touch regularly, and then I didn't hear from her for about a month or two. And then a friend told me about her, and because she was going to some Christian Science event, and she says, well, I believe you know this woman, it's wonderful, and did you know that she had cancer and she was completely healed and had no more symptoms? And when I learned more about her situation, she explained that indeed one day she had such a sense of joy and such a sense of this oneness with God that we talked about. It's not philosophy, it's something that feels very tangible, that she just had to go out and run. She just felt she had to run, and as she did, she realized that all the symptoms that she had that had been documented and part of her life had left her thinking, but had left her body too. She was completely healed with no more symptoms, no more pain, and nothing, and it was completely cleared of the entire challenge. And can give you a quiz now. What is her job today? So is she a baker, a dancer, or a Christian Science practitioner? Not a baker, not a dancer. So what happened? You could say, if I make it very short, a complete transformation of thought, a complete yielding to the divine, a complete refusing to go down the slide of what the world says was making sense. Symptoms in our bodies. Sometimes it can be a situation at home that makes sense. You can see it with your eyes, you can feel it. But she refused to engage in that state of thought, to really be at one with another term for God, which is divine mind, infinite consciousness. So how did I pray? It's almost not accurate to say, how did I pray, as if there was one way of praying. No, consistent with what we talked about, thinking and spontaneity, Jesus says that prayer is not just repeating words, it is fresh and spontaneous. So I'll explain what I found helpful from my study of the book, the Bible and Science and Health, but each one of you may have a different way of praying. we'll see what doesn't change and what changes. But for sure, the approach can change, and there's a core idea, and that core idea is really feeling that sense of God and being clear with our oneness with God. So I don't know about you, but often when someone starts praying with this Christian Science approach of prayer, the temptation is to feel a sense of burden. In a way, we feel excited when we hear about all those healings and from neighbors and church members and others. But when it is our turn to be sitting down to pray about something, we may feel the temptation and the suggestion of a burden. Will I succeed? Will I be good enough? Do I have enough spiritual understanding? And I find that it's the very first thing to take care of is a false sense of responsibility. Who is the best teacher on that prayer that heals? Well, Jesus. And Jesus said, and I quote, "I can do nothing of my own self." So I find it helpful that the first thing to do is to get out of the way. It's not to think that I have to do something. Let's not try to do more than Jesus. Let's get out of the way. And you'll find that it takes away those suggestions about, are you good enough? Will you succeed? What is it too hard? I can pray about a cold, but I cannot pray about this really big mess at the office. And he'll take care of it, because suddenly there is a release, and we lean on something else. So what is it that does the actual healing? Well, we'll talk more in a moment about consciousness and our yielding to the divine and what happens in thought. But the thing that does the healing is, the Bible talks about the still small voice. It is an idea, a spiritual idea that comes to thought. And I remember when I prayed about this woman, the thought that came was the idea of innocence, that she was completely innocent. It is so easy to feel guilty about something, that we deserve evil in some way, but that was the idea of innocence. What I mean by a spiritual idea is, if on one day we think many things. We think, I have to go get the shopping, I have to go pick up the kids, and we feel we're creating those thoughts. But the spiritual idea I talk about is more something we listen, something we hear, something that comes to us, not something that we create. Sometimes to fight fear, we may feel a sense of a spiritual will. If something bad happens, we feel, no, God is present right here, or it's impossible. There is a sense of we take action, but ultimately it is, you could say, the voice of God, that reassurance that is in consciousness that dissolve whatever belief we were holding on. And that spiritual idea dissolves whatever belief we're holding on, whatever darkness we're holding on. Not hard to see that it is a very important concept, because it's written right there on the wall, and I'll read it for you there. It says, Jesus says, "You will know the truth, and the truth will make you free." So it's our knowing of the truth of God's presence, our knowing of the truth of perfection, right where imperfection seems to be, that create this change of thought. Something that Jesus said that is critical in healing and answer the question asked for centuries, which is, what is evil? Where does evil come from? No one stopped me earlier when we were discussing the beautiful idea of God as infinite good, as tangible harmony. But logic could have raised its hand and say, well, it doesn't make any sense, because there's a war out there, so how do you reconcile the idea of infinite good and a war, or a challenge in our life, or unemployment? I'm glad I don't have to answer that question. I will let Jesus do it. to the question of evil, and evil is a very convenient term to, just like a big bag term where you can put disease, injustice, accidents, racism, anything that is wrong that we experience, so that's under the label evil. Jesus said specifically that evil is a lie. Jesus didn't say, well, you should ignore evil and say, oh, it doesn't exist there. No, he says evil is a lie. So it is something, but this something is a lie. And it is a bit unusual because a lie is not something, but a lie may have power. If I was to show you a 50-euro bill, like banknotes, and for those of you who have not seen a 50-euro note, I'll show you a fake one, a counterfeit. But if you've not seen one, you may be fooled. And I'll buy something from you, and I'll give you the money. And so you see how it has no value. It is just a lie. It has just no value. But our acceptance of a lie seems to give it power. And wasn't this what Jesus was saying? That no, we're not ignoring the evil in the world. Not hard to see what Jesus did in the end of the Bible, the Gospels. He was healing disease and solving hard situation. He was really destroying evil. But that's the very point. He explained how to do it. You don't fight it as if it was something big, and through a bigger understanding of Christian Science, you would somewhat find healing. No, you handle it as a lie that comes to your thought, as an aggressive mental suggestion that comes to your thought with history and justification and logic. You know, for the woman I talked about, there was a pile of logic that would have her just give up and say, well, I guess there is nothing I can do. And it is rare that evil appears in our life without some form of logic, some form of a history, sometime of our doing or someone else doing. So seeing evil as a lie is the way to destroy it. That's why we have it on there. You'll know the truth about God, the truth about God's presence, and you'll yield to this sense of God. It's really yielding because, you know, when the foot hurts, you say, well, you know, it really hurts. It's not a lie. It's really real big pain in there. It's not a lie of any. It's just, it hurts. So it takes a lot of yielding to realize, yeah, it appears to be, but he's not. Because the only logic is the infinite presence of good, of God. That's the only thing that there is. And, you know, when I say Christian Science, it's a new term, but really I could remove the term Christian Science and in its place put Jesus' pure teachings. Not the teachings that were made into hitting others with a cross on their head, but the pure spiritual teachings of Jesus. It is interesting to see that those very teachings have been interpreted in so many ways, and there are so many different churches and hierarchies, but when you go back to those teachings, this is what we talk about when we mention Christian Science. It is this pure spirituality. So there is one theme that comes back over and over and over in Jesus' teachings. It's the concept of the kingdom of God or the kingdom of heaven. And I can't help thinking that maybe Jesus was annoyed at times because he keeps repeating the same thing and people don't get it. And he says the kingdom of God is right here, right now. Not some magical kingdom, just kingdom of God, just God's presence, the infinity of good, harmony. Harmony is right here, right now. It's the very fabric of the entire universe. And he kept saying it's right here, right now, and people keep saying, nah, it's for later. Kingdom of heaven is, we've got to be good now, and maybe later when we die, some of them will go in hell, and others will be saved in the kingdom. But Jesus, I think he must have been annoyed sometime, and at one point he says, well, it is right here, right now, it's within you. It's within you. And so it's how you can get closer than this. It is not something inside us. It's just to show that we are the expression of the divine. That's what we are. And as we said, healing is a demonstration of that fact. This is why, and that's my second point, we saw first when we begin to pray to get ego out of the way, the I out of the way. And the second point is to realize that prayer is not about changing anything. It's not about correcting something or transforming something. It is really about revealing what is already true, revealing the kingdom, revealing the presence of God right here, right now, not out there or over here in the body, but just in our thought. It is yielding to really accept and say, yes, God is present here right now. Right where my grumpy daughter doesn't talk to me anymore for whatever reason, and I don't know why, and I decide to pray about it, and it doesn't feel like a lie to me, it feels very real, but prayer is about yielding to the fact that harmony is already there, that she only expresses this one mind, which is God. So you see, that's prayer. So in essence, prayer is not about bringing back perfection, is to realize that perfection never left, and that's the yielding. And then the third point, and the fun part, is that every prayer, every Christian Science treatment is different. It's different, and as different as singing in the shower. When you sing in the shower, you sing because you're happy, and if you sing, but you don't have a program, or on Monday I'll sing that song when I'm happy, on Tuesday that song. No, it just comes and you sing, and half of the song or whatever. But you can see that the song is not about the words or even the music. It's a sense of joy. Well, it's a bit about the same thing with prayer. Often it doesn't start with a sense of joy, because what starts our prayer is some form of challenge somewhere. But the point of this is to expect spontaneity. We may be led to read Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, or other psalms, or some Christian Science magazines, or just to be inspired in other ways. So we may feel that we are doing something, but eventually it is our yielding in thought. It is our discovering of some ideas that come to us and that make sense. Some aha moment. We feel, oh, wow, I always thought this, but that was wrong. So what this woman was discovering is, to me, is the biggest news of the day, and should be in the evening news tonight, but maybe it won't be. It'll be about politics again. It is about who are we? Who are we? And I said earlier that God as Father, Mother, doesn't matter, Father, Mother, means that we have to be children. But likewise, we can see God as the one and only cause, which needs an effect. You don't have a cause of anything unless you have an effect. Otherwise, just a stone standing there. But a cause of something has to produce some form of an effect. And congratulations, you're joined the Effect Club. All humanity is the effect of God. Paul says in the Bible says that our job on earth is to get rid of the old man and its deeds. Another way to say it is to get rid of a false sense of identity, age, education, limitations, and so on. So it is very practical to think of ourselves as the effect of God. It's really giving us the permission to be as perfect as God is perfect. And again, I feel comforted because that's what Jesus says. He says, be therefore perfect as your Father which art in heaven is perfect. I'm not talking about some human perfection and tidying the closet in a perfect way. It's way deeper than this. Yes, as a side effect, it may make us tidy if we're a bit messy, but it goes deeper than this. It's really giving us permission to see ourselves as God is. So whatever is true about God is true about us. So unlimited, perfect, holy, whole, pure, complete. That's our nature. And then logic would again raise its hand from the back of the room there and say, well, what about this body? Well, it doesn't look perfect or beautiful or pure or whatever. Well, wrong desk here. I'm sending you to Jesus' desk, and he says it's a lie. It's what seems to be, but is not. It was interesting to me that a few years ago, a very serious medical magazine called The Lancet had a book review on a discussion amongst neurologists and discussing what is reality. We've been talking a lot about the lie, what appears to be. Well, that was in this purely secular medical magazine. What caught my attention was a statement that was made in there. It was a question, and their question was, is the whole, and I quote, is the whole material world nothing more than a dream? End of quote. They were not talking about Disneyland or something. They were really talking about the nature of reality. And isn't it true that we perceive our world through our consciousness? And Mary Baker Eddy, the author of the textbook, I'll talk about her in a moment, that's what she explains in her book, Science and Health with Key to Scriptures, I mentioned. As a side note, it has almost the same cover as the Bible, but it is not a second Bible. It's more like a highlighter, like it's to highlight all the spiritual meaning of the Bible. And in her textbook, she does talk about reality as, or what appears to be our human experience, as an illusion, as a dream, as something that seems to be and is not. And all images have their limitations, just to make a point, but it's as if all we knew was when is a shadow in the street. If someone is walking in the street and we did not see the person walking, all we could see was the shadow, and we say, well, that's a person, this flat dark thing on the floor, that's a person, but we were missing the actual person. Well, that's the point about a dream. It's not about saying all this doesn't exist. It's a material perspective. It is a limited perspective on life. But actually a tree is entirely spiritual, but we don't see it that way. But when we yield to a clearer sense of the divine in everything, then we realize that a physical universe disappears from thought, and we're back to what Jesus was teaching, was the kingdom of heaven right here, right now. But we're not in a philosophy class. As you've seen, it does heal, because that change of thought does heal. What I found really interesting when I first started with Christian Science was the idea that is written left and right all around, is that what appears to be our human experience and our consciousness are the exact same thing. That's why you have the idea of a dream, because in a dream, you may experience many things and they feel physical. You may be feeling like, or dreaming that you're climbing a ladder and suddenly you're falling off the ladder. But it's just a dream, just a dream. But in a dream, it does feel in 3D and very tangible. So likewise, our human experience and our consciousness is the same thing. We experience our state of thought, which is the very reason why prayer works and how it can work. As we've seen with the healing of the infant, my healing early on, and the woman with the diagnosis, the emphasis was on a change of thought. We didn't say that it was some form of positive thinking or some form of vibration. No, it is all in thought, because what was more important, and it's true in every single case, what's more important when we're faced with a challenge is not so much the challenge itself, but how we think about it, how it makes us afraid, or what we see as its cause. Maybe we're guilty of something. That's the mental construction is the actual challenge. And that's why prayer and this yielding to the divine helps us realign our thought with the one mind, God, where we only believe to start with and then know and experience harmony. And that's change of thought, change our experience. And to me, there is no other way to explain the fabulous and incredible healings that you can read about or hear people telling you about. Remember the doctors and the first healing I shared, there was no way that a diagnosed stomach perforation could be just healed without any human hands. It was just making no sense. The idea of a placebo effect and those things, or things just go and heal themselves, may work logically or possibly in some ways, in some cases, but there are cases where it's just not possible. Anytime we're faced with a challenge, we face fear, and anytime we have a clearer sense of love, if I use that term for God, a clearer sense of love, and I would say a perfect sense of love. An imperfect sense of love is if I bring you chocolates, and because it's Mother's Day, but I expect a smile in return, well, that's still loving, but still an imperfect sense of love. Still, I'm getting something. Perfect love, unconditional love, divine love is just shining. It doesn't ask for anything in return. It's everywhere. So when that sense of perfect love really embraces our thought, the fear disappears. And that's what the Bible says. Perfect love, in King James words, perfect love casts out fear. So you see, we're never responsible for the healing. Again, Jesus said he could do nothing of his own self. But we're responsible for the listening, for the yielding. And we always have a choice. Jesus said that if you have faith like a mustard seed, a very small seed, you'll move mountains. It starts with faith, because if your daughter is inviting you to a show, she says, "Mommy, come to a show. It's really modern and very unusual. Come, you'll like it." You'll go there with some form of faith, because I trust my daughter. You're a bit not sure to start with. Eventually, you enjoy the show, and that faith is transformed into a more solid understanding. So it is not about faith healing. It's really about understanding gradually, more clearly, our oneness with God. Terms are important. Words are important. They are technical in explaining metaphysical concept. And Christian Science has somewhat of a unique view on Jesus Christ. Of course, Jesus Christ was one person, but the Christ is more seen as an office, as this awareness of, first, his oneness with God. Jesus never said, "Oh, I am God." He said, I'm the Son of God. And by the way, you are too. When you pray, "Our Father which art in heaven," he didn't say it's just about me. And so he was the first one to make this full discovery, even if earlier in the Bible, arguably other prophets and Abraham, Moses had some glimpses of that idea of oneness with God. And this sense of our oneness with God is, we could say, is the Christ understanding. So Jesus was expressing the Christ. That's why he was called Jesus the Christ. But we could say that on a daily basis, those ideas coming to us when we listen, when we're quiet, when we stop telling God what we need or what he needs to help us with, that's the Christ coming to thought. Not a person coming to thought, but that idea of oneness. And it cascades in all types of diamonds and precious gems, all those ideas that come to us. So we talked about the singing in the shower as something very spontaneous. Well, likewise, that's the fun part about prayer. It is very spontaneous. It all starts with our choice to turn away from darkness, to embrace more of the light, and then to go into a gold hunt to find those ideas and to listen to those ideas. And isn't this comforting that fear that can be very tangible at times, and fear and anxiety and so on, and all the different masks of fear, isn't this comforting to realize that fear is just like darkness? What I mean by this, yes, it's a nice image, yes, like darkness. But the point is, how do you deal with darkness? You never fight darkness, even if you're afraid of the dark and you go in a room that is very dark, you never fight it. You don't have like strong will to fight darkness. If you're not happy because you have, I don't know, animals in your backyard, I don't know, rats or something, you may decide to fight the rats. You may, okay, I'll push them away so they can go play somewhere else. But you never do that with darkness. You don't fight darkness. You just find the light, because the light takes care of the darkness, because the darkness is not something tangible. Any physicist would say that darkness is not something. Darkness is the absence of light. And isn't this comforting to realize that fear is not something? I mean, just like darkness, we see darkness, but when we see darkness, our eyes don't see anything because it's just an absence of light. So we may feel fear, but it doesn't make it real or tangible. If you had the really bad idea, in my opinion, to watch an horror movie, like a really scary movie, don't know about you, but I think my heart would be beating and it would be difficult. Although I know, I'm a grown man, I know those are actors, the big monster is not a big monster, and all those things. And still, I would experience fear. So it does show that we can experience that feeling and still is not linked to something real. Well, Jesus keeps saying, fear not, almost begging, fear not, fear not. Why? Because a clear understanding of God as light, or God taking over our consciousness, is the antidote to fear. And yes, it does bring healing. I'll try to answer the question that you haven't asked yet, which is, does it really work for situation out of our control, like a war out there, or the economy, or things that we cannot touch? Does it really work? The short answer is yes, it does. Why? Because a change in our consciousness will change our experience. Some years ago, I had a very minor fight. I mean, I was not initiating the fight, but I found myself in some big argument, and to human sense, there was nothing I could do about it. It was a very minor thing, and I was going to buy my bread in a local bakery, and as I parked in front of the bakery, another customer came out, and felt that I was not parked properly, and became very aggressive, and so I said I was sorry. I was very kind, and to me it was out of proportion, this gigantic reaction that she was having, and this thing that I didn't even do, but I was still kind and said, well, I'm sure I'll be fine, and she was blocked, so I couldn't move the car, and I would have forgotten about it. But the next day, as I was walking past my house, I saw the same car coming my way, and I don't know, an intuition told me to be careful, and so I was just vigilant, and she was not going very fast. Indeed, it was the same lady, but as she drove by me, she tried to run over me. So the wheels went on the sidewalk, so I jumped to the side, and she was not going very fast, but that was that. And I was in shock because I could not believe that it had anything to do with the minor incident of the day before that I forgot all about it. Just came to thought as she did this. So I did a little research, found out where she lived, and she was just, actually she was taking her grandchild to the same school as my kids, but she was living in a different block, and I had to go there. And so I rang the bell, and she was in the house, and I was really ready to say, well, I'm sorry, this is silly, what's going on, and be splashing her with love. But she could see me outside, but she left me outside and never opened the door. But another neighbor opened his door and shared that she was a major challenge in this neighborhood, that he had been on his bicycle some month before, and somewhat in the middle of the lane, and he was not riding in the right position to her taste, so she pushed him with her car bumper, not strong, but he fell down and had to go to the hospital for a few stitches, and on as I was gathering there, other neighbors shared similar stories of things that make it very, very complicated, and adding that everything had been tried humanly to solve the thing, that there was just nothing that they could do. They even tried to involve the police, but nothing was done. Nothing was done. So when I say that prayer is exciting, yes, it is exciting because it is not for us to do something. It is to really turn on the radio, to turn on God radio and listen. We don't have to put up the show. We just have to turn on the radio. And sometimes we turn it on and we hear it quickly. Sometimes it takes a bit of fiddling to hear the radio. And I realize I'm doing this to turn the radio where probably no one does this anymore. So turn on the radio or... trying to find another image, but anyway. A TV show. Turn on your TV or turn on your TV. Anyway. So the thought that came was very simple but very powerful. For sure, it was clear that nothing could be done humanly, and being kind and offering flowers didn't do it. This is not what love is about. Yes, it's kind to give a Mother's Day card and Valentine cards and being kind. I would say that's the basics, but that's not. It can go deeper. Actually loving, is to really see God's oneness with our neighbors, and it's easy to do this right here, right now. Oh yes, I'll see my neighbor as God's oneness, as the very expression of perfection. It's easy to do this right here, right now. But when our neighbor takes our parking spot for the 10th time or is annoying, then, well, our prayer is put to test. It's doing it now. So the simple idea that came was really the idea of love, not as being loving to her, but of love as she could not be anything else than the very expression of love. That the whole situation from A to Z was just a lie. A lie that right here, right now, had a choice to either nourish in thought or see as a lie. As much a lie as if it had never happened. Otherwise, it makes no sense. We cannot have, well, the kingdom is here, right now, but evil is also here, right now. Either it's here or not here. So it is literally realizing that all there is love. All there is God's presence. It may seem daunting as I talk about it now, but it is possible. It is possible. As we practice those ideas, as we love those ideas, as we sharpen our sense of love, it'll become more and more possible and easier to treat any challenges that come our way as really a mental suggestion, something that comes to thought that, yes, has some form of a representation on the human theater, but is really a suggestion. And I want to emphasize that prayer doesn't lie. It has to be consistent. So going back to this lady, it was about being consistent. I cannot, for 4 days, accept that 2 plus 2 equals 5 is a lie about 2 plus 2 equals 4. I cannot accept that for 5 days, and then for an hour and a half on the 6th day, think that 2 plus 2 equals 44 or 22, and then go on believing something else. It has to be consistent. What I mean by this is to convey the sense of the precision of prayer, the precision, the consistency, the expectation. And that expectation is to see that dream leave our thought and to only accept the truth about the situation. It did mean that, for example, when I was doing my dishes and thinking of something else, and the situation would come back, I would think, oh, I'm worried for my kids because sometimes they go and use their bicycle in front of our house. So I'm glad I told them not to do that anymore. But then think of the situation as something real and tangible, just to catch my thought right there, to replace it with a sense of love's presence. That actually all that is going on, that ever been going on, is love being expressed, and she was the very expression of love. So sometimes it does take, for any challenge we have, some dedicated prayer time, either at our desk or with our books and the Bible and reading, or taking a walk and to get an uplifted sense. But I would say what's important is our consistency. And a test of the end of our prayer is when worries leave us. A test of the prayer being over is when we're not worried anymore. When the thing doesn't seem so real, we almost forget about it. We have such a sense of peace, such a sense of our oneness with God that it seems to be the one thing that is real. And after a few days, this is what happened. I just felt a sense of joy. I didn't feel worried anymore. And I must say that for the first few days, as I noticed her at school when she was taking her grandchild there, she was very unpleasant with me. I won't go into details. So that went on for a few days. But after this deep sense of peace, where really the story became the story of love. That's the only thing that ever happened was love being expressed. That's what I was really thinking, believing, and knowing. In an afternoon, there was a complete change of behavior on her side. The marble look completely dissolved, and she became kind and greeting me, and we didn't become friends, but there was a complete change of behavior. And when I checked with my kids later, because I don't live there anymore, but they're still there, they haven't heard of any more challenges. All the things that were famous in the neighborhood that she was doing to annoy other people have not been reported anymore. You can see a complete change. If you take a very tiny boat, plastic boat, like in a bathtub for a child, and you press it and put it underwater, it'll rise up quickly. It's a law. Or now if you take a gigantic tanker, just those across the street there, the same principle happens. It's not about size. I'm using this image because what has been experienced in this somewhat minor situation of a conflict with this neighbor is the exact same principle that applies for any conflict. Or should I say more precisely, anything that we perceive as a conflict, anything that we are aware of and bothers us. That when we do turn on the TV and we learn about a new war in this, African country, or a new battle at the city council, or whatever other thing that really annoys us or depresses us or have us feel discouraged, well, we have our part to play. Is what are we going to accept? And it's as serious as the earlier experience with my mom and the diagnosis and the choice she had to make between swallowing all this in or refusing it and only embracing perfection. And Jesus said we are in the world, but not of the world. The temptation will always be to think as others and to go with what the world calls the obvious. But that will not bring healing, and that will certainly not bring a sense of peace. So there is no doubt that our prayer can change the world or can change our perception of the world, and we'll experience it in a more harmonious way. At the top of the book there's 3 words, Mary Baker Eddy, the author of the textbook, and she almost found it by accident. It was not an accident. She was led to it. But the point is, she did not have the idea of creating a new system of belief. No belief, it's about thinking. Or changing how we perceive Jesus' teachings. No, we're talking 1860-something and just a dear woman, a Protestant, that was really challenging the concept of her time and about womanhood, about God. So she had a clear sense of God as the infinite. And she'll find herself suddenly healed after years of invalidity. Completely healed by reviewing the Bible and extracting the spiritual sense of the Bible, the deep meaning that we've been exploring tonight. And what she could have done when she found herself healed, after all, there's been many healings in the Bible and throughout the centuries, Christian in the 16th century saying, I read the Bible, I was healed. But what's the next statement after that? It's a miracle, or it's God's way. And to me, without being judgmental, but using the term miracle is an easy way to get rid of the challenge. It's a miracle. Don't have to understand it. But Mary Baker Eddy could not think that this was a miracle. So at first, she was even not sure why she was healed. For a few months, it wasn't clear. But as she prayed, as she studied, as she got rid of any human interpretation of the Bible, she got to the core of the ideas that we have tonight. And then she came up with the book that is divided in all types of chapters. And the first one is prayer. There's another one, physiology, creation, Christian Science practice, teaching Christian Science. All those things that, in a way, make the Bible super alive, super exciting, and super consistent. It's not about picking up a little phrase there and, Paul says men should not have long hair. Well, okay, you're whatever. No, it's about looking at the entire Bible from a spiritual standpoint, not something to hit anyone's head on and or to control people. And as she did, well, she had healings of her own of incurable situations, and so she shared those ideas with the others. She asked the local church if that church was interested, and they were not interested. It was just against everything they were thinking. So she had to continue on her own, and healings after healings. The book came, and then a publishing house, and then eventually a church with no clergy, no dogma, just a group of people thinking, and then more and more healings. And that's how Christian Science was born, and that's how it arrived in the U.S. and then around the world, and even on my doorstep, right there in France. But her real motive was really to give mankind a clearer sense of God and alleviate human suffering. And what would she tell us if she was right here, right now? Well, one thing she said at the end of her life, she said, I'm still studying science and health. I'm still learning. She was a model of humility, and just like a science, I don't think we have any quote from Albert Einstein saying, yeah, I understand everything, I'm done, gotta go play chess now, I got it all. No, you keep learning, and that's what's exciting. If it's a set of belief, once you believe the belief, what else can you do? Go play baseball. But if it's thinking and understanding, it's endless. You keep growing, and you pray about something and you don't have a healing right away. You wonder, how is that? Because last month I was completely healed of this thing, but it doesn't seem to work now. What happened? So you look at your thoughts. You look at, you go back to the textbook. It's really an experiment, and that's the exciting part. And so yes, a religion in the sense of being linked to God, because the term religion in Latin, religare, is to be linked to the infinite, but that's all there is to religion, because it's not about belief. It's really about being excited with spiritual ideas that you can test and that work in your life. So to summarize, as you can feel, maybe we could go on for 10 hours on this topic, but I don't want to deprive you of your own study and own discoveries. So what we found is, yes, indeed, there is no human challenge that is too big. I mean, we will be told that it's too big or too hard or impossible, but that's the first lie maybe. And as we've seen, a lie only works if we accept it. If I show the 50 euro bill and you all say, it's a fake, we know it, no one is fooled. So that's the first step. And to me, the biggest thing we've seen is that, which is summarized in Psalm 46, it's, be still and know that I am God. In daily life, we do so many things. Oh, we got to take the kids to school. We got to finish this job. Or we got to work on this exam. We got to do the shopping. We do so many things that prayer is the one thing where we don't do. We watch, we listen, and that's why I love Psalm 46. Be still and know that I am God. It's not about what we do. It's about what we listen, what we yield to. And finally, we saw Mary Baker Eddy, and she had many writings, and there are magazines you can buy over there, the Christian Science Journal, Christian Science Sentinel, where she first wrote the first articles just to be an example of a scientist, and she set the model of our practice. She always turned people away from her, who were saying, oh, you're wonderful, you're amazing. She was, well, go back to your books, go back to your study. Don't look at me in person, you'll lose me. Look at me in my writings, in the ideas. So in a way, don't you think we're all experimenting with life? We're all scientists testing those ideas, and no path is the same. So as I said, if you've never had one in your hand, over there you can get a copy of magazines, or you can take the two books together, the Bible and Science and Health, and begin to read them. study them. And one thing I found helpful is to study with a sharp eye. And I'll finish with this. Some years ago, my dad gave me as a gift some parachute jump. I would jump on my own from an airplane. So of course you had a day class where you would study the theory and lots of things about how to jump off the airplane. And I remember I had my first child, and the nights were short, and so I was still reading the thing about how to make a good parachute jump. And I remember reading 2 pages. I read everything, and but after 2 pages, I realized that what I read I could not really remember, and I felt I should probably go back because that may be helpful to know what to do when I'm up there in the air. My point is this: it's not about just perusing the book or just looking here and there. It is really about challenging it, and I like the idea of challenging. If you get a copy of anything there, just challenge it. Just look at it and say, well, that doesn't make any sense to me. That's fine, cross it out, move to the next sentence until you find something that makes sense. Just like math, it's not because the teacher said it that we believe it. To believe that 2 + 2 = 4, we had to see 2 apples and 2 apples, and now we're believing, knowing, and it was true. So that's how I would encourage any of you to dedicate your study or rededicate your study, is challenge everything. Look at everything as if there was a typo in what you're reading, as if Mrs. Eddy had left a secret message, which she did not do. She says, there's a typo in the book, please find it. So anytime you read something, you feel, oh, is this the typo? Maybe it is. But you see, you would be really, really vigilant. You would not think, okay, she said it, it must be true. Or, well, who am I to challenge this? Well, you are everything, so you can challenge everything. So we will not do 10 hours tonight. We'll just finish now. So a big thank you, or should I say a big merci.